Well, the highlight of our week was supposed to be the debate for U.S. Senate, but Hurricane Sandy took care of that. It did not stop our team at State of Play. Here again for more are Stephanie Hansen of the law firm of Young, Conaway, Stargett and Taylor, and Charlie Copeland, president of Associates International, a graphics and printing company. And we should point out, in case people forget, both of you have served in public office, so it's not just armchair quarterbacks. You've also been in the game, as they say. So we didn't have a Senate debate, but we did have some questions left over for 3 of the candidates running for U.S. Senate. It's our 1-minute best practices question, and we'll start here. Federal dollars for such things as education, beach replenishment, or financial incentives are important to Delaware. Given the size of the federal deficit and the controversy over earmarks, do you believe those federal dollars should continue to come to Delaware? How will you balance your duty to help Delaware with your duty to keep the federal government on a sustainable fiscal path? You'll see the answers back to back to back.
During my time in the Senate, I've worked to make sure that our delegation requests funding for only the most deserving projects. Funding we've received in Delaware has helped create jobs and improve our state's quality of life. That said, reducing the amount of wasteful earmarks in federal spending is a goal that I have long supported. We did it with the state budget when I was your governor, and I've made it a priority as your senator too. Working with Senator John McCain, I've authored bipartisan legislation to give the president a line of veto authority to eliminate wasteful spending items, including earmarks, that too often inflate the cost of spending bills. If wasteful spending were headed for Delaware, I'd tell the president to use his pen to eliminate it. For years, I've been searching every nook and cranny of the federal government to find ways to save and recover billions of taxpayer dollars. We found billions to pay down the deficit by making federal agencies better manage their finances, by curbing fraud in Medicare, and by reducing cost overruns at the Pentagon. I'm committed to helping Delaware, and a big part of that means helping put our government, federal government, on a more sustainable path.
40 cents of every dollar in federal spending is borrowed, some from foreign hands. This can't continue. Before too long, the interest on this debt will overtake the entire cost of Medicare and soon after destroy the nation. This is the national abyss made by career politicians. The U.S. Senate has not passed a budget, the national shopping list, in over 3 years. How does Washington react? They ignore it and campaign for re-election. Beach replenishment is not on the minds of Delawareans. The future of their children and the looming loss of our way of life is what keeps them up at night. Fisker is an example of the public treasury used as a tip jar. Several $100 million in our money gone. It has to end now. Washington won't change till we change the people in Washington.
I believe that the federal government has a role, and I think some of their money is good for Delaware, but I don't want them to control our life. I don't think the federal government should be involved with our state and our local school system. I just don't. I think we should run our schools ourselves. With respect to the beach, it's a national asset in addition to a state and local asset. Our beaches from Maine to Florida need to be protected and assisted, and we need those federal funds to reimburse the local authorities for the money they spend on them and to replenish them. And finally, with respect to Fisker, I was in favor of General Motors, I was in favor of Chrysler and bailing them out because they had experience as profitable companies making cars in America. Fisker's never made any cars in America. They've never been successful here. We gave them $500 million. I think it was a mistake. I was against it when it happened, and I proved to be correct. I think it was a mistake. Thank you.
And so there you see sort of the difference. Alex Pires in favor of beach replenishment, Kevin Wade not in favor. And we should point out that these questions were posed to the candidates about a month ago. So it's to hear Kevin Wade say that people aren't concerned about the beaches and beach replenishment is sort of jarring a little bit this week. But there is a difference between where these guys all stand on beach replenishment. Not surprising that, I guess, Alex Pires, a beach guy himself, is in favor of more of that. Does it make a difference between the 3 of these?
Oh, I think it certainly does. And I mean, the difference is on a couple of different levels. I mean, Alex Pires is a businessman that has a significant portion of his business dependent on the beach and tourism and whatnot. Although I think that, and Kevin Wade does not, he's more of a Newcastle County guy. However, I think Kevin is wrong. I mean, he's out of step when he says that the beach replenishment isn't on people's mind. I don't know, well, perhaps it's not beach replenishment, but the whole tourism industry in Delaware, which is very dependent on having beaches and therefore beach replenishment affects a lot of Delawareans. So I think Kevin is off base on that one.
Just to put that answer in context, I think that he was looking more at, there were some news articles about climate change, aka man-made global warming, which, agree with it or disagree with it, it's hard to argue around it, and the efforts that are being done within DNREC in the state of Delaware around some of the beach communities, not Rehoboth and Dewey and Bethany and places like that, but some of the smaller communities. And you look at, say, federal flood insurance at the beach. Well, if you're going to buy a house at the beach, you know you're going to get flood. There's no way to diversify that risk through insurance. And so why do we have federal flood insurance for people who are knowingly buying in a risky environment? So I understand your point. I mean, from an infrastructure perspective, from a road, are the beaches kind of like a road for the state of Delaware, for the nation, for tourism and things like that? Perhaps, but I think that Kevin's now, his answers, if he had to do it again, I think he'd change the way it was framed to looking at some of those issues, not the replenishment per se.
And I think that maybe it splits into two issues. Maybe it splits into beach replenishment in an area that supports tourism versus beach replenishment almost purely for private property interests, like the beaches in Sussex, in Kent County and along the areas there that we've talked, where people have their residences, but it doesn't really supply much in the way of dollars to the tourism industry or the public at large.
And I agree. I think that's what the issue was. So, and from a standpoint of Senator Carper, I mean, he's been in Washington for a long, long time, voted on a lot of new programs, and to sort of make this claim that, oh, I looked through that budget and try to find cuts in spending, that stretches credulity. I mean, while he's been there, the federal government has grown enormously, and I just don't remember him sitting there in front of the microphone saying, we've got to stop. He's not standing next to Jim DeMint.
So we had our debate scheduled for this week. Obviously got washed out because it had been scheduled at Widener Law, and they canceled, obviously, closed all their buildings. Does it hurt one candidate more than another not having a debate? Obviously probably doesn't hurt Senator Carper not having to hear from Mr. Pyries calling him sick and infirm, and what other ailment he can come up with to sort of attack Carper. Does it hurt Pyries not being able to get on TV in front of the viewers to sort of put on that show again?
I think that whenever you're the incumbent, it behooves you to not be seen with your challengers, whether it's Mr. Pyries, whether it's Kevin Wade. The one who probably hurts the most is Kevin Wade because he has less money, and so therefore to get the media attention, he's got to pay for it, and he doesn't have the money to do that, where a debate is sort of a level playing field.
No, I completely agree. I mean, that was an easy one. It's the challenger that benefits the most from the debates, and like Charlie said, I mean, although Mike Castle, I think that was a strategic error in their part not to do more debates and be head-to-head
in the primary
with Christine, but that was the exception and not the rule.
Does it? We'll just move on. We talked to Tom Carper, Senator Carper, a couple of weeks ago about maybe life after politics. Even if he does win this time, he's got another 6 years, and Pyries has made the point that he's not young anymore. Do either of you see sort of Senator Carper moving on after this election if he wins 6 years from now? Do you see a Delaware politics without Tom Carper in office somewhere?
I would hate for him to become like Strom Thurmond, who they were sort of wheeling in and saying, it's time to vote, Senator, and putting the guy's hand up.
Right.
Or Bob Byrd, who, in my opinion, seemed to have served beyond his capacity to know what was going on. So, yes, I think that a rational decision is you look at it and say, I've had a good ride, and there are other things that I can do that in the national and international scope. He's got, obviously, contacts galore. So, sure, I could see him taking off.
I think so, too. I think also it's my hope, and, well, the Democratic Party has a lot of very qualified people at the very top of the ticket. And I think it would behoove everyone that when the decision is made, it should be made at a time when the election process can happen the way that everyone expects it to happen. You know, unlike who I think Alex or someone's been saying, well, he's going to get in and he's going to leave and it's going to leave a spot open for them to appoint somebody. There's always a concern about that. I hope that that's not in the cards. I have no indication that that is in the cards. But that would look a little tricky.
That would not be good for the state in general. I think everybody's in agreement for that. So we need to spend about a minute. You mentioned the top of the ticket candidates. Let's go a little bit further down on the ticket, and a Sussex County race involving somebody we've talked about here on State of Play a number of times, Eric Bodenweiser. We've made sort of light of his campaign song and things like that. Now he's facing some very serious charges. Sort of separate of the charges, let's look at the mess that's on the ballot now with trying to get him replaced. He dropped out, and his replacement candidate, the write-in, is now apparently going to be on the ballot as of the last court challenge. Is that good for voters that he's going to be on the ballot, or is it sort of just all a mess?
I think it appeals to a sense of fairness, because otherwise the Republican Party would be left without a candidate on there. Now, I think the question has been, and it's been going back and forth in the courts, is, you know, currently the way the Delaware law reads is that the party can put someone in that position to run as long as the prior candidate was incapacitated to a level that he could not serve if elected. Well, I mean, he's indicted. We have people that have served in office who have been indicted while under indictment. We have people who have run for office while they were indicted. So, I mean, I get the sense that what the court has done, and they can do this because they're the court, and particularly in Chancery courts, a court of equity, is they see a result that they want to get to, which is, out of a sense of fairness, the Republican Party ought to be able to have a name on the ballot. It's just being able to piece together a legal argument to get there. There isn't a clear precedential or clear code way to do that, and so I think it's being constructed to get there.
Yeah, I'm not being an attorney like Stephanie is. I don't know the court decision part of it. I look at the word incapacitated and I see a guy that's facing 113 felonious charges, and that could be a while. And if I were that individual, I would want to be able to focus on that, because I could go to jail for a long time. And so you've got somebody that fundamentally is incapacitated in their ability to run because of this, and then once elected, or if elected, they may not be able to focus on their constituents and the state of Delaware as they're supposed to. So as a layperson, I view him as being incapacitated. I think that was the right decision. Maybe that's partisan of me or what have you, but I think that voters deserve to have choices, and so I think that worked out correctly. But you know, we'll see who wins. Yeah, and getting on the ballot very late. Pettyjohn didn't really have much of a chance. He was running sort of a write-in campaign after Bodenweiser stepped down, but not much of a time to put together any kind of campaign. What do you think the final result will be? Is it going to be a tight contest? I tend to think not, because Pettyjohn is well known in the area. He was the town mayor of Georgetown for a long time. He has a good following. Write-in candidates have won before. I don't even necessarily believe he would have, by default just lost previously, because it's a very Republican area. So I think that this does a lot to make sure that he does win. I haven't seen any polling. I think that Stephanie is probably right that he wins, but by the same token, there may be people out there who say, this whole thing stinks so badly that we're going to go the other way. I guess that's why they hold the election. That's right. We're tired of those Republicans. We're tired of all this business. We're Democrats and the other guys out. Well, we'll have to wait and see till Tuesday night. So much to say, and that's why we'll have you both back on Tuesday. Stephanie Hansen and Charlie Copeland, we appreciate your time on